The Steelers head to Detroit this weekend, a must-win game for the Lions if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. But man, the way these Pittsburgh Steelers are playing right now, they're not going to be an easy out. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Katie Caldwell. This is Jeff Lloyd. Jeff, let's start there. The Steelers have been playing some of their best football lately. I guess it's a pretty good time of year that you want to be doing that. What do you expect to see from them on Sunday?
It's kind of weird because, I guess it was 2 to 3 weeks ago now, Aaron Rodgers breaks the wrist and like, how's he even gonna do this? Like, how's this gonna and
Right. At his big
shockingly
age.
enough, it's actually improved because, I mean, to just be straightforward, Aaron Rodgers was not playing very well at all for Pittsburgh.
No, he
The
was
last
not.
few but all of a sudden now the completion percentage, and he's not the bomber that he used to be. But I mean, you throw a completion percentage that Aaron Rodgers is working at right now, obviously any offense is going to, have some
Mhm.
success. So it's, it's crazy to see at his age, and maybe age is the theme here for December in the NFL. I don't know. But for Aaron Rodgers, it's certainly been a nice run here. You've only got the 1 game lead over Baltimore. You just I don't have much confidence in the wide receivers, but they're making enough plays outside of DK Metcalf. The running game, I think it could be better. Kenneth Gainwell, and I don't even know if he's got a position really. I wouldn't lay. I mean, I think he's just Aaron's
Yeah,
guy. Like he's got to be on the field in crucial situations, and
that's
Aaron's just going
right.
to move him where he needs him. You know what? Run up in the slot. You know what? I want you in the backfield now. And I know Aaron Rodgers has gone out of his way to kind of speak publicly on Gainwell and how impressed he has become with him. Just a really heady football player, and can obviously just do a little bit of everything. And he's been really key here because
Mhm.
the Warren thing, and I always liked him as a running back. And it made sense to me when they moved on from Harris, and we're going to give Warren a little bit of a bigger role. But then it's like, oh, maybe this is why you always kind of just kept him, in that mid, more than 10, less than 15 touch role, because maybe
Yeah.
when you get it's a little bit more, it loses the appeal. And that's kind of been the case for Jalen Warren here this year. But Kenneth Gainwell's really probably kind of been, in my opinion, an unsung hero because every
Mhm.
time there's some play that needs to be made, whether it's a 3rd and 4 run or a 3rd and 7 pass out to the flats, and he finds some way to contort his body to get an extra, 9, 10 inches just enough
Yeah.
to get it over the sticks. He's been a really, really impressive player for Pittsburgh.
How big of a measuring stick game is this for Pittsburgh? I know that these two teams have the same record at 8-6, but the Lions have looked better than their record to me this season, and they still can just look so explosive. I do look at this as a bit of a measuring stick game for the Steelers and where they're at.
I would say I would go with that, and then I just don't necessarily know, I just maybe, maybe I'm still wrapped up in what Detroit should be as opposed to maybe what they are right
And
now.
maybe I am too. Yeah.
Yeah, like, 'cause you just I mean, if you ask me this, it's always, was the first thing Detroit's a better football team. Detroit's a
Yeah.
better football team. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Mhm.
All 3 of those playmakers, and hell, even Jared Goff. I would take Jared Goff over what Aaron Rodgers is doing right now. So,
Oh, every single day of
yes,
the week.
if you're
Yeah.
Pittsburgh if you're Pittsburgh, this is a measuring stick game. It doesn't mean nothing though,
Mhm.
because I don't know how to equate the NFC, which is the better overall conference right now, as opposed to the AFC. And certainly, the AFC North has a lot of obviously NFC South vibes right now.
Big
Like we don't
time
know who's going to
in the
win,
worst way.
or exactly, we don't know who's going to win. We don't know if anybody's necessarily really pushing the envelope, or they're just going to wait till
Yeah.
week 18 and say, "Oh, do we have a shot?" So it feels that way. But also, this could really be a tough spot for Pittsburgh because you go in
Mhm.
here, you lose this game. Now all of a sudden, Baltimore wins. Both of you are sitting there again at 8-7, and
Yeah.
you got to find somehow, some way to piece out a victory or two here. This isn't, the most advantageous situation in my opinion for Pittsburgh. I mean, you're going to Detroit. They play so much better than the Lions. They're just so much
Mhm.
faster there as well. All things that I think could really probably cause some problems for Pittsburgh.
One of the crazier stats of the season is the Lions' record when Jahmyr Gibbs scores a touchdown, 8-0. The Lions' record when Jahmyr Gibbs does not score a touchdown, 0-6. I feel like the importance of him to this offense cannot be overstated.
Hey, there's been times this year, right? And we've talked about this, right? Oh, they got a Jahmyr Gibbs game. And all of a
Yeah,
sudden, Detroit goes out and drops 40. So
imagine that.
And it's funny when you talk, certainly about Jared Goff, and you talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you talk about Jameson Williams, but I do think the key for this team offensively is Jahmyr Gibbs,
Jahmyr
and
Gibbs,
it's
because
not
he can be
just
in the receiving game too.
the thing is he can just obliterate you. He can drop
Yeah.
180 yards on you in 3 touchdowns. Like, it's and the thing is, you don't have to give him 30 touches to do it.
Yeah.
Look, you let him carry it 13 times, you could throw it to him 5, 18. He could get 180 on you in 3 scores because that is
Mm.
what the type of difference maker, his speed, he is with the ball in his hands. In my opinion, still one of the more underrated offensive players in the entire NFL. I do not know why he does not get more pub than he does, because when
Mhm.
he is right, he is disgustingly right. Last week, obviously not that much of a factor in that Ram game. So, for Detroit, and that's the thing, is because it doesn't necessarily commit you to any specific type of game plan, because he can be such a good receiver. Or
Mhm.
if you think that Pittsburgh can't handle your running game, well, now we're really gonna, run some hell on you, because Gibbs is gonna tire
Yeah.
you out, and David Montgomery and those high knees is gonna knock you out, and just running north and south. So,
Yeah.
Gibbs for them has to kind of be obviously the key here, because he can do so much damage. And again, it does not take a lot of touches for him to basically, put his statement on any game.
What are the biggest vulnerabilities you see in this Steelers team? Because one that stands out to me, I think they need to figure out how to stop the run. So I'm kind of licking my chops as a team that has Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in that backfield. I think they're going to run all over them. But what are the biggest vulnerabilities you see in this Steelers team?
Well, as much as I will heap some praise, because I absolutely agree with you on the running game aspect, but as much as I'm here waxing poetic on Kenneth Gainwell, Kenneth Gainwell, like, this is who I'm trying to, like, put in the hierarchy of Pittsburgh Steeler offensive weapons right now. So that's
Yeah,
when it's great
fair.
for Kenneth Gainwell, but outside of DK Metcalf, what is going on with this wide receiver crew? And look, you
Yeah,
don't blame them for moving on from Pickens. I not in any way whatsoever. And that's going to be one of the strangest free agencies there is, because here's a guy with all the potential in the world, but
mhm,
do you want to deal with it? Or him just hunting the ball after a third down because he felt like it. But that's certainly another story for another day. But I think that's the problem for Pittsburgh. And when you're in a game where your opponent can easily put 35, 38, 40 on
mhm,
the board. Where is that amount of production and point total coming from this Pittsburgh Steeler offense? Because I
yeah,
just don't see it. And the other thing is, I think Pittsburgh plays and tries to give off, the mentality that they're tough. The Detroit Lions are tough. I don't think that
yeah.
the Pittsburgh Steelers are necessarily a tough team.
That's the thing. That's such a good point. When I line them up side by side, I still just have so much more faith in the Lions here. And then when you have an Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, who are really good at dominating kind of that middle of the field area, that looks like
Mhm.
that could be a problem for the Steelers defense. Are there any other players or I guess position groups that you could see as being an X factor in this one?
Well, I think you have to go to Detroit and, the lack of guys missing, and it's really
Mm,
difficult, when you're doing a patchwork secondary. And, and we've talked about, a player like Branch, and
right.
Branch
Oh,
is
what an yeah.
so, but he does so many things. And
He
you
does
can say, "Oh, well,
everything.
we have a backup strong safety." Okay, well, does he play linebacker? Can he play slot? Can
Yeah.
you blitz him? Can he play a little edge if you needed him to, and string out a running play? Because
Hmm.
it's one thing to have another strong safety. It's another thing to not have another Brian Branch. And that's the
Yeah.
difficult part, for Detroit, is it's all this patchworkness. And, so then you're simplifying yourself, because I can do anything with Brian Branch. Well, I cannot
Hmm.
do anything with him. So, it certainly, keeps things a little bit more simple. I think Detroit's just a little bit tougher, of course, up front. Aiden Hutchinson, just a fabulous, fabulous player.
Yeah.
Muhammad, and I want to talk about a guy who's kind of just been kind of irrelevant in the league, and all of a sudden he's taking over this year with his pass rush ability. So Detroit, as much as, that secondary gives me some pause and some hesitation, these guys are certainly going to be licking their chops. And, there are still some guys in Detroit who kind of remember Aaron Rodgers.
Who do you have winning this one, and what is your score prediction? We also haven't brought up TJ Watt either. What a wild situation that is, and someone you'd probably really want to have on that defense for this game.
Certainly brings up thoughts of Tyrod Taylor and how Justin Herbert made his NFL debut. It's
First thing
exactly
I
what it
thought
takes.
of.
But also the other thing though is and what it makes me think is what's going on that we're actually poking around near as long? Like, obviously, there's an
Good
injury issue
question.
here, but why is there why is there any type of possibility that there is a needle in TJ Watt's chest, and then we're still talking about a possibility of playing a game on Sunday? So,
So wild.
TJ Watt certainly, in a tough spot here. I gotta be
Mhm.
honest, it's rare when I think something's just gonna be an absolute boat race, but I really think this is gonna be a boat race. Detroit knows, and I think maybe change the mentality for Detroit is probably this Micah Parsons injury, because I think they were sitting there thinking, "Man, this is gonna be a real tough thing to shake out for us to find our way in." But I think if you're Detroit, you're thinking there's a real legit possibility that Green Bay could just flat out collapse here to close out the stretch.
That's
Because
true.
you lose that player, and if anybody knows what it's like to get into the, late into the end of the season like Detroit did last year with missing so much talent,
Yep.
it's obvious that Detroit understands this, and I think understanding that they may have some, fresh life here for the Detroit Lions, I mean, if you told me 40-24, something like that, I would not be shocked at all. I just think Detroit just has so much more firepower on offense. And I think for Pittsburgh, so much has to go right for them to even find a way to put up a score number that would maybe even be a threat to take a game against the Detroit Lions.